Michael Cena, co-founder of Recall Network. Welcome to the show.
Hey, Peter. Thanks for having me.
I want to begin with on the Recall Twitter uh, handle, on the Recall Twitter account. I think starts with a really good explanation for what Recall is. Maybe we can use that as a jumping off point and then get into it.
Sure.
Okay. Recall, trusted discovery for the Internet of Agents. Google's PageRank transformed the internet. It made the entire web accessible with trusted website recommendations. AgentRank is doing that for the Internet of Agents. So maybe you can complete kind of that line of thinking. Tell us, what Recall is and what what this product is that you guys are building.
Sure. Um, so, as you mentioned, we're building the trusted discovery layer for the Internet of Agents. And if you think about it, the explosion of AI agents pretty similarly mirrors the explosion of web pages on the early internet. And imagine back then, God, I don't even know when, the 90s, and you wanted to find something online and you had to go to AOL or Yahoo or these random internet bloggers who were keeping a directory or a repository of useful web pages, and that's really how people navigated the early internet in the era before search. Um, and obviously those curations were fragmented. They existed in a bunch of places. Um, they were biased to whatever the curator thought was useful information for whoever was looking for whatever they were looking for. And it wasn't based on anything real, right? They weren't driven by the number of traffic to those pages. It wasn't driven by quality of the content on those pages. And when Google came around, they introduced PageRank, which was Google's search algorithm basically. And what it did was it indexed and organized the internet according to website reputation, page reputation. And so, instead of being at the whim of these curators and having everything fragmented, Google created a system where it could automatically sort of provide the most reputable pages and the most relevant pages to users based on whatever they were looking for. And so as the Internet of Agents arrives, and today you have in the tens of thousands, let's say, or hundreds of thousands of agents that people are creating for a whole bunch of things. Soon that'll be in the millions and the billions, with the agent economy expected to grow to over 300 billion, in the next 9 or 10 years. That network of agents needs similar infrastructure that enables people to ultimately search for what they're looking for. So agents with, let's say, crypto trading experience, or agents that are good at marketing, or agents that are good at travel recommendations, cancer detection, etc., and have the results presented be based on real reputation. And the main difference here is that the reputation of a website was really defined by how many other pages linked to it, how much traffic it got, those sorts of things. If the New York Times and A16Z and some other high quality pages linked to your page, it gave your page reputation. So Google would rank it higher. When people searched for it, it showed up higher in the list. And the difference is with agents, obviously you don't have that backlinking type of metric, but you do have performance. When people are searching for a trading agent or a cancer detection agent, they're looking for an agent that is the best at that skill. And there's various ways to determine that, but that's effectively what Recall is providing. AgentRank is a reputation system for AI that enables better discovery, trusted discovery, ultimately so users can find what they're looking for and be more successful in this new internet paradigm.
The number that you shared about the number of agents, I don't think most people are aware of kind of the growth of kind of AI agents online. Um, And especially like Web 2 people, like most people just don't interact with agents, or maybe they are, they just don't know. Tell us about those numbers, because they sound astounding. And in the next 10 years, 300 billion agents.
Yeah, and I think those are honestly conservative numbers. Where agents differ from, say, an application, which is this all-in-one monolithic program that you go to, Facebook, Instagram, Amazon, all pages or applications. On the agentic web, agents are really small. You can think of them as like automations. And if you think of, the number of automations that exist in the world today, like bots or scripts that do things, they're, there's so many. And, if you look at some of the agentic products today that let users create agents pretty easily for doing certain tasks, like I'll create an agent to automate my purchases of cryptocurrency, DCA me, buy coins over time once a day. I want to invest $100. Well, like that single action can be an AI agent. And then I can also sort of, deploy or launch another agent to DCA another coin, right? And so when you think of agents not as full applications, but it's almost like what microservices did to, um, back-end infrastructure, sort of taking these monolithic things and breaking it down into all of these single functions that serve a specific purpose. It's not far-fetched to believe that, there could be hundreds of agents per person if you're just letting it run all of your automation. So when we think of how this economy scales, the numbers become really staggering in terms of just all the things that you might want to do online or do in your business become fully automated away. And each of those automations is run by an agent. The numbers become even more astounding when you think of the logarithmic sort of exponential growth of the agent ecosystem, when agents are actually contracting other agents to outsource some of those tasks, right? So maybe I have a personal assistant and I say, I want to book a travel booking or a hotel recommendation. And I want to go to Italy. And it might find, on demand, the agent that is the most skilled at knowing all of the hotels in Italy, right, to provide it with the input it needs to provide me with its recommendation. So when agents actually start contracting other agents and outsourcing these, then you start to see that real big explosion. So across all dimensions, users, businesses, and agents, it's an already large ecosystem today that's running a lot in the background, but tomorrow we'll be powering the internet.
I forget the name of the Web 2 tool that I used that helped automate lots of like disparate tasks.
Was it like Zapier or something?
That's it. That's exactly it. Yeah, I was a heavy user of Zapier, where I'd grab data, I'd scrape something, and then stick it in a Google sheet, and then make a report, and then do this, do that. And when people hear of agents, they probably think of that. I guess, how are kind of AI agents different from using a tool like Zapier?
This is a popular question, and I think one that we'll start to understand as agents become better. But today, a lot of people say anything that's an automation is an agent because it's trendy, and your business gets more market cap if you say you're an agent. But I think of them in three stages. So there's bots, which are just scripts, right? They're sort of like defined functions that take an input and they generate an output, and it is like a closed loop, right? Like it's in, out, and that bot or script defines what happens in between. That's not an agent. Then at the next step, you have what I would call like workflows, right? And so this is like a little bit more nuance and a little bit more autonomy, but it's not fully looping. So you have a system that might pull from different sources, or might be able to sort of like automate some complex processes that you don't explicitly define. It sort of can learn what to do, but does the intended action that you tell it to. Like, I want I want to do X, and it figures out how to do it and generates the output. I think of that as a workflow. That's like not quite an agent either. The line between that's a little gray. But when we start talking about agents, we talk about sort of things that can make decisions on their own. So you don't have to explicitly define the output of what it gives you. And instead, it can keep like looping on itself to understand what it needs, the best way to do it, like what the correct decisions to make are, and it generates that output. And so they're sort of like autonomous thinking entities, right? That can take in data, perform some transformations in logic, and make its own decisions and chart its own path forward. So I think of it in terms of like how much you have to define the input, the process, and the output in terms of bots. You step into the middle with like workflow automations, and then you step fully into the agentic world where they're sort of independent and autonomously thinking and reacting to the world around it, creating this like loop right between environment, agent, action. It rereads the environment, thinks of a new action. And so that's really where you get into the innovative use cases.
Two questions on that. The way I think of it is kind of like the difference between supervised and unsupervised. Kind of supervised is you tell exactly what to do. You know, grab data from this URL, stick it in this Google Sheet with this URL, that type of thing. Whereas unsupervised is, I think of it as you give it an objective and then kind of figure it out. And then it learns as it goes along. Is that kind of a decent way of kind of describing or maybe summarizing what you shared?
Yeah, exactly. And I think in your first example, like that's Zapier, right? If you imagine the UI, you have to go into Zapier and say, like, take this column on this table and put it in this other thing here, right? And you have to define all of those. This maps to this and this does this. Whereas with an agent, you're like, generate me the most returns on my crypto portfolio within 7 days. You can trade any coin on any chain, go. Right, like, and it sort of does what it needs to do to achieve that objective.
That's amazing. When you think of an agent and it's learning, I think one of the common questions that people have, and I've asked it myself, is, you know, when they're learning a thing, where is that memory? Where's that information stored? You know, as they try something, they hit a wall, and then they recognize, okay, that didn't work. Let me store that somewhere so I remember not to go that way again.
Well, it depends on the type of agent, right? So on one extreme, you can think of OpenAI, right? And so OpenAI had that big announcement. It was probably a couple months ago at this point, where they say now ChatGPT will remember you, right? Like ChatGPT will remember all of your previous prompts and interactions so that the next time you come, you don't have to give it all this context again. It has all that context from its previous interactions with you and its thought processes so that your prompts are more efficient and it's more personalized. And that's where they see the stickiness of their product coming in, is from this like memory retention. And that is the moat that they're building, right? Because logic is sort of a commodity at this point. The models themselves are a bit of a commodity, but it's like, how much context can you give that model for a user to make the model better for that user? So that's where OpenAI is, and they store that centrally. But for, you know, the crypto world or for other agent builders, there's a variety of places you can store memory. A lot of agents store memory locally, you know, in a local database or something. But with Recall, you know, agents can store memory on chain. It's a feature of our network, and so you know, it sort of depends on the use case you have, but you know, being able to put memory someplace where you can ensure it's durable. So if your agent shuts down, gets wiped out, restarts, you can pull back in all that memory and sort of boot it up to its last snapshot, so it can keep moving forward. Like, that's pretty powerful.
Yeah.
It's also a good way that agents can collaborate on logic. Like, one agent can learn from the logic of another agent to sort of build multi-agent systems. So yeah, I think memory is a pretty key piece to this. There's not one size fits all, though. You know, And so I think it really depends on your use case, but for sure, I think as models move to become commodities, memory and the ability to amass a lot of memory about certain things so you can be more effective as efficiently as possible, that's big.
You shared with us kind of the very high level, a high level introduction to recall. Maybe let's get into the details. How does recall, like, maybe let's talk about, a specific problem and how recall solves that. The high level problem is, this is going to be a very large market, and there is no reputation system on which agents that you can work with that will do kind of the objective that you want. There might even be malicious agents, and so we want to be able to, create some kind of reputation to call those out, and possibly recommend like the best agents for whatever you need.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us kind of how that's working right now with the agents that are live. Maybe tell us a story.
Sure. So I'll go back to the crypto trading example, and that's really where we focused first as our first market, because in the crypto world, it's like people are building social agents or trading agents, right? Like those are the two big first use cases. So if we sort of focus in on the trading agent use case, everyone claims they're the best. Like, everyone is like, use my agent, you'll generate 10x in a week, and you can go touch grass. And there's really no way to verify which ones are actually the best. And so what we do at Recall is we evaluate agents for a skill such as crypto trading by putting agents head to head in competitions that are sort of like live and in response to real world conditions, where these agents sort of like compete at that skill for a period of time. And the network actually evaluates their performance and generates performance data. So, agent A, B, C, D generated these results at this skill over this duration. And making agents sort of run head to head in defined competitions versus sort of open-ended evaluations sort of solves for market conditions and dynamics, right? Like an agent trading this week versus an agent trading next week could generate very different results. So we sort of like we control as many variables in the competition as possible. So these agents compete head to head, generates real performance results, and agents do that over time. So it's like less about the results from one competition, but then they enter a second competition and a third competition. And you can start to chart their performance over time, which helps you build confidence that those performance results are legitimate. They're not luck, they're skill, right? The more times you loop through that evaluation cycle, the more confident you feel in the result. And so a real story is there's this agent, Moonsage Alpha, previously unknown, enters our first trading competition, and wins by a small margin. It was a pretty competitive competition. There were 25 trading agents competing head to head over a week. And I think it won by like 0.5% P&L over the second place agent. And so that generated some signal. It built its reputation. Then that agent came back and competed in the following competition, which were pretty much the same parameters, trade over 7 days, optimized for P&L, and it won the next competition by like 10% return or something like that over a 7-day period. And so its outperformance versus the pack in the second competition was way more impactful than its outperformance from the pack over the first one. And so what Recall does is it takes performance outcomes over competitions, and it creates a score called AgentRank out of that. And AgentRank factors in performance data, and we haven't launched it publicly yet, but AgentRank, in its full form, but AgentRank also lets community stake on agents they believe will continue performing well in the future. So if performance data is backwards looking, right, because all of these competitions happen, Community curation is a bit more forward looking. So when you combine those metrics together, you get a pretty robust reputation score that's crowdsourced and verifiable, because all the results of these competitions and staking are all on chain. And so that's how we rank agents per skill. And so, now with trading, we have a list of 35 or 40 agents that have competed over 2 competitions, that have generated agent rank data, and have, in the absence of curation being live yet, we have community voting, which is effectively the same thing. And so we combine this data and we rank agents on these leaderboards. So users coming to look for crypto trading agents can see agents ranked by their agent rank score. And so, it's conceptually a pretty simple algorithm. There aren't very many variables, but it's about the combination of the various factors put together that lets us surface the best agents for given skills.
That's really cool. Who enters these agents into the competition? Do they enter themselves or the agent creator? How does that work?
I guess if you created an agent that was fully autonomous and
Yeah.
it could enter its own competitions, right? But today it's the agent developers. So, if I have built an agent, or I, deployed an existing agent and populated it with my strategy, I can enter it in competitions. And the community on the other side of this are really playing that role of curators. And so we involve both sides. So it's not just a developer platform for testing and ranking your agents, but it also puts community in the loop of like curation, and ultimately they're the ones that are looking for agents. So yeah.
So as you're thinking about your go-to-market strategy, it sounds like it's a two-sided market where you're trying to bring brand awareness to a recall to agent developers so that they can enter in their agents into the recall competitions. And then on the other side are curators of these agents. And so I guess these would be, in the specific example they shared, these would be like traders. But at some point, if there's a different type of agent in a different domain, then it could be, let's say healthcare, or I don't know, X-ray data. Then that would be on the curating side. These would be people that are familiar, maybe oncologists or something. Is that a weird way of thinking about it, or is that right?
No, I mean, that's right. Except what we've seen is people are playing the curator role, even who aren't necessarily experts in that skill set themselves. So that we found the people curating trading agents aren't only like sophisticated traders. Over our first 2 competitions, we had over 450,000 votes cast for these agents. So we found that we're able to activate a pretty wide audience in terms of these evaluations. And so, I think depending on the skill type, certain skills and certain competitions lend themselves more towards a wider participation rate from the community than like more niche things or things that are just less exciting to pay attention to. So it'll vary by skill, but yeah, I mean, it is the right way to think about it. Sort of like the supply side of agents are agent builders, the supply side of curation are curators, and the demand side for all of this are AI consumers, whether they're users, businesses, or agents.
Yeah. Earlier, you shared an example of like a cancer identifying agent. On the curation side, it occurs to me that nobody, like not anyone can just be a curator of a cancer identifying agent. Will you filter for kind of expertise on that side, or?
So the market should take care of that. And so curators, depending on how you design the economics and how things we've been working on internally are like designing the economics in such a way that accurate curations and predictions, if they're early enough, are rewarded appropriately, and inaccurate or curations that aren't useful are slashed. And so you really shouldn't have people, unless they're just fully gambling, curating things they know nothing about or haven't used or can't vouch for at all. And so if you think of when someone curates something, if you're curating it before there's any historical data about it, which basically means if you're curating it before it's competed in a competition, you have the most upside from a curation perspective, because you're providing economic signal that you believe this agent will improve its agent rank score and will climb up the leaderboard without any data backing it. So maybe that means you've looked at its code. Maybe that means you know the developer. Maybe that means, whatever reasons you have for making that curation. But other curators might curate already proven agents. They'll capture less upside, but the agent will have a body of historical work that they can look at and sort of just say, well, this agent has steadily improved its agent rank score over its last 10 competitions, and they have a solid presence on social, and I believe I know someone that works on it, so I'm going to curate it. And so there's different reasons for curating depending on how early you're curating, but it's still the same incentive model where you're only rewarded for correctness, and incorrectness is punished. And so you sort of have the market deciding, like, people with true insight and true knowledge about these agents will probably curate early, and those that just sort of want to free ride or follow and provide signal to already proven things will capture much less of that curation reward.
What if you mentioned there's like 400,000 curators so far, something like that,
Mm-hmm.
which is an astounding number. So I guess two questions there. How did you, how did you activate that many people on the curation side? And did you select for specific, I guess the initial go-to-market is like crypto traders. And so are these primarily people that are interested in crypto trading?
Well, I think it's sort of, by being in the crypto space, there's a supply of crypto trading agents that we knew we could just get on the platform and get tested, and start to have them build reputation. But on the other side, a lot of people in the crypto space, I would argue almost everyone owns at least some amount of something. And so there is this natural incentive to like pay attention. It's something they can relate to. It's something that's relevant to them. So, one of our key decisions as we were choosing our go-to-market strategy is like, how can we solve both sides? How can we test agents and provide them reputation where there is a lot of supply, and also test agents that people will actually care about? Like, people actually care about the skills that these agents are competing on, and they understand them. And so we started with trading, and one of our key tenets in going to market is, we didn't roll out full curation from day one. We didn't make it economic from the start. We started with super simple actions that people could relate to, right? Like, I think, our first competition, we rolled out a voting system where before the competition started, you could look at the agents that were competing, and you could read their trading strategies. You can look at who created them. You can like find various info about the different agents that were competing. And we let people vote in a few time windows. You could vote before the competition started, which is like early curators, like curating before these agents have competed. Or you could vote after day 1 of trading, after day 2 of trading, or after day 3 of trading. And so like we kind of let you vote over this period of time, and you got fewer points the later you voted because you had more data available to ultimately make your curation or your decision. So we started it super simple. It was like an agent prediction game. Like, which agent do you think is going to win the competition? No economics, just voting, some points incentives to reward accurate curations, which ultimately translate into the eventual economic model. And so we started to just test various components of the curation system in super simple ways for the community. And I think that really resonated. The second competition, we added some more bells and whistles. We put agents on different teams. It was like five trading agents on Team ETH and 5 trading agents on Team Sol. So it gave people that cared about those ecosystems a reason to care about trading agents. And they were sort of like repping their communities. We saw a ton of fan art created. It was like esports for crypto trading agents. It was actually pretty wild. And so I think it's about that. It's like finding easy entry points for people to engage and learning what mechanics the product really needs. And then as you start to roll out your economics and things like that, it's in line with both the needs of the community and the actions that they can and want to take, and can ultimately drive the data that your product needs to become better. So I think we spent a lot of time focusing on that, and I think the 400,000 wallets voting in the early competitions is a result of that.
Tell us about your background. Like I guess what in your background makes you like really well suited to co-found Recall and do something so innovative in both the crypto and AI space.
Sorry about that. So I've been crypto native, building decentralized protocols since 2016. So I've been really deeply thinking about verifiable systems, community powered coordination, economic incentives, and I've gotten to see over almost a decade in this industry, which is even hard to imagine at this point, what's worked and what hasn't. And so, my background is I was a co-founder I joined Consensus in summer of 2016. My job offer was actually the day of the DAO hack. Like I got an offer letter, and then the DAO hack happened, and I was like, does Ethereum even exist anymore? Like, is this going to work out? And it did. I co-founded a project called YouPort, which was the first self-sovereign identity protocol built on blockchain, built on Ethereum. And since then, I've just sort of been in pursuit of, verifiable data systems and identity and reputation systems. And so, what we were building with YouPort was a way for a user to collect a whole bunch of data from a bunch of sources that collectively makes up its digital identity, like certificates and attestations and verifiable credentials and NFTs and all sorts of things to make up your digital profile. And then we sort of spun out of Consensus, and we started the company 3Box Labs. And at 3Box, we built Ceramic, which I guess is now integrated into Recall, but it's a data streaming network. It enables you to build things like scalable, verifiable, decentralized databases. Again, in the sense that like all data was signed by a user, so it could be attributed back to an identity, fully verifiable, but more scalable than you might be able to do on chain. And over time, as we were pushing that forward, we've been working alongside the team at Textile, who was building very similar things for about just as long as we were. They were building databases and data networks and verifiable systems. And their team has a background. They started as an ML company. And so we kind of, we've always been like co-opetition with them. Like we were both building similar products. It's crypto. We worked on standards together, but sort of we're always in the same place at the same time. And we finally decided it was time that we just did something together. And when we put all our heads together and thought about really where is the next step, where's the web going, what needs verifiability and some notion of identity and reputation, AI stood out as being, there's going to be more agents than there are humans. There's going to be more agents, maybe even than web pages. And when we started thinking about that world that was rapidly emerging a couple of years ago, we knew we just had to build Recall. And so it's, I've been on this trajectory in college. I studied political economics, so I'm always thinking in terms of like game theory and economic design. And so, yeah, I guess it's sort of been a lifelong mission at this point to make this thing a reality. And so it felt only natural that not only did we build this, but we built it together with Textile. And so we merged companies and formed Recall Labs and launched Recall, and I guess the rest is history.
That's cool. Oh, tell us what stage Recall is at right now. Have you guys launched mainnet or you're still in testnet? Tell us about that.
Mainnet's not yet live. We've been on testnet now for a few months. We're running competitions. Just because it's testnet doesn't mean that the competition data is not verifiable or valid. Really, what testnet means is there's no live economics in the system, but the core mechanics of competitions, competing on skills, writing results on chain, building reputation, like all that stuff still works. And so we've run a few internal competitions, 2 public competitions. We have our next competition for crypto trading coming up on July 8th through 15th. It's another 7-day trading competition. And we'll continue rolling those out. We'll expand the number of skills. So right now it's trading. We'll be rolling out things like predictions of different kinds. So sports betting and sports predictions. We'll be rolling out taking action on prediction markets with agents. So agents that actually make predictions economically. We'll be rolling out marketing skills, a variety of ones. And that culminates in us launching a feature called skill pools, which actually lets users stake in pools for skills of agents, and it lets them launch new skills. So if there's like enough demand staked in a pool for a skill, it'll kick off competitions for that skill and start rewarding agents for, improving their agent rank on that. So it's a way for the community to crowdsource skills and ultimately like drive the development of AI towards the things they care about. So that isn't live. All these things will be coming out when mainnet is out, but that's the direction we're headed. Right now, we're really just sort of like nailing the competition format, running competitions in this one skill. We start to expand the skills. We start to let people spin up their own skills in competitions, and we sort of turn on all the curation. But it doesn't mean that competitions aren't happening, and they'll continue to happen in the short term.
That's cool. This is really, really interesting. I met with a project called Fleek a little while ago, and they're in the space of making it easy to launch agents. And I asked him one of the questions. One of the questions I asked him was like, "What trends are you seeing? Like, what kind of skills are these agents? Like what domains and skills are you seeing?" And he said that what is really interesting. He was expecting to see kind of a developer focused agents, but instead he was seeing a lot of marketing and like copywriting and like video editing, kind of like agency things that like a marketing agency would do. And he saw a lot of agents being created in that space. And I know right now you guys are focused on trading agents, but I'm curious to know, like, of what you've seen, are you seeing something similar or different?
Definitely. And internally, we use a lot of them. Like, not only are we a company building AI infrastructure and protocols, but we are actually like an AI company, and we use tons of AI internally. It's one of the things we filter for in hiring. So we use a ton of AI agents on our marketing side, on our development side, to make us all more efficient. I think the era of the multi-tiered organization and a bunch of middle managers, like that's just not the future the world is heading towards. And so, now you're a much leaner team. You are contracting a fleet of agents that does various outsourced tasks on your behalf. And, I think really the role of people in this world is how do you evaluate the taste of an agent, right? So like technically an agent can be a technically good copywriter, but is it set in the right tone of your brand? Is it of the right style? Technically, an agent can make a design for an app that meets the feature requirements you outlined, but is it cool? Like, does it vibe? Like, I think these are the things where it's up to the director of the orchestra, the person in the seat, to be making those decisions, knowing which agents to contract for which things based on where they excel. And so, I think this is another area for recall competitions. Like trading is a very objectively measured skill set. There are metrics that are indisputable that you can use to evaluate the skill of a trading agent. P&L being the most obvious, but more advanced traders look at things like Sharpe ratio. Back in the day, I used to work on Wall Street. And those were some of the metrics we used. It's like, what is your value at risk that you took to achieve that return? Did you like full port, degen, 40x leverage your capital to achieve that return? Or did you make a bunch of safe bets with not that much value at risk at a time? And those are like two very different skill sets. And I would always pick the agent, that is better at managing risk. And so, but still, those are all very objectively defined, measurable things. But when it comes to things like marketing agents, content creation agents, creative agents, these are a bit more subjective, right? Like, who's to say which agent has better taste? Like, how can you measure that? And so recall competitions will expand to include more subjective skills, and that brings human curators in the loop even more. Right now, they're curators, they will become also evaluators of agent skills. So things that are creative do need humans in the loop to do those evaluations. So you can start to think of like, for what certain types of tasks do agents excel? At a certain taste, what agent is the best? And so, it sort of is a little bit of a different way to think about skills, because it's not so clearly black and white, better, worse, but there's better or worse according to what the taste profile you're looking for is.
Yeah.
And so, we're seeing a ton of marketing agents being created, automating all facets of the business. And so, we knew that AI was disrupting a lot of things. And one of the things it's going at first is the SaaS industry and the agency industry, right? Like, you don't need all these different SaaS tools. You don't need all these big agencies. You don't need big teams. You just need people that know which agents to hire for which things, and they know how to sequence them, right? So,
You mentioned evaluators. Who evaluates the evaluators?
so they're built into the network economics. The evaluators have to stake. They're auditors, and so
So they have to risk some. They have to risk
exactly.
something. Got it.
So you can think of like all the participants are staking value to do their job, to sort of enable the agent rank flywheel, right? So like, agents stake to compete and earn if they do well. Evaluators stake to assess and earn for correct assessments. Curators stake to earn from accurate curations or predictions. And then users can discover the best agents because these other participants are working together, sort of secured by this economic system that rewards them proportionately for the value that they're adding to AgentRank.
I see.
Yep.
Do you is the end game for Recall to be, to provide some user interface where I, as a consumer, might want, hey, give me the best copywriting agent, and then you guys present, here are the ones that have been ranked, based on these competitions, and here are like the top 10, and then I select from the top 10. Is that one of the outcomes that you guys are trying to achieve?
Totally. And that interface can look a bunch of different ways, and it doesn't have to be built by us, because like, really, we're providing that reputation data set, like that trusted agent rank data set that can be implemented in a variety of ways. Like, maybe I want a clickable menu. Like, maybe I want finance agents, I want trading agents, I want agents best on Solana, and I can see a list, right? And it's ranked by agent rank. Or it could look like search. I want trading agents on Solana, and it just sort of ranks the best ones or most likely. And so it can be embedded in agent marketplaces or AI marketplaces, where the agents that marketplace is showing and enabling you to hire, it's recommending which ones to use based on the agent rank score. And so like, we're not, we don't want to trap that interface, because the value it provides is far greater than a single UI. And so really, it's about providing that trusted data set that can power trusted discovery of agents across a variety of platforms.
We started this conversation with, the Twitter account invoked PageRank. And so maybe let me share with you an example where I hacked PageRank and created a really healthy business out of it. And then 2 algorithm changes came Penguin and Panda, which then destroyed, all the businesses that were hacking PageRank at the time. And would love to see kind of like what kind of loopholes can you envision, and how you guys are planning on tackling it. But let me share with you this example. So a while ago, I had dozens of very domain specific websites, and I hacked the system in a way where I was able to get lots of really, really, really healthy backlinks, and I didn't buy any of these backlinks at all. And of course, as you know, PageRank, it's based on reputation, and reputation is, they counted each backlink as a vote. And some votes are weighted higher. Like if you get a backlink from New York Times, et cetera, it's better than, it's weighted heavier than a backlink from, Michael.com website or whatever. So anyway, so in a couple of these websites, they did well. They were all affiliate websites, and one of them, funny enough, I was selling mattresses for an online company that was selling mattresses, and I became, or this website was like for 3 months in a row was the highest grossing website for selling these mattresses. At one point, I sold like 23 mattresses, like, which is crazy, right?
Congrats. Yeah.
Anyways, so, but the way I was building these, I would do, my SEO research, and then I'd have the next step, which is create a bunch of like really great content, and then publish the content, and then getting the backlinks to these, to these pages, et cetera. And then of course there'd be affiliate links throughout these pages. And then Panda, and then I forget which one came first, either Panda or Penguin. Anyway, Panda, one of the big issues was the low quality of websites that was being presented to searchers. And that led to the first change, which was either Panda or Penguin, I don't remember. And then that eliminated, or that cleaned up a lot of the search results for consumers. And then Penguin came along, and then it slashed even more websites. And then after that, Google learned that they needed human evaluators, and they created a system where, websites would be presented to them, and then they would give it some kind of a ranking. But it was always and it still is the case, where there's a human in the loop. And so it's not entirely automated. So having presented that, like what problems do you envision Recall having as you build out this reputation system for agents? And what are you guys doing to, alleviate or, be ahead of the curve, I guess, when, as you think about that?
Yeah. So two come to mind. Well, by the way, congrats on your mattress business. That's it's impressive. Little known fact, back in the day, I had a bed sheets business. So we're
we
we're
should
on
have
the same
partnered,
level.
man.
Yeah. So the first one I'll call out is, it's pretty hard today to know what is an agent and what isn't an agent. Right? Because really what agents are doing is they're writing some chain of thought logic, like how it's getting to its decision, and then it's publishing the decision, right? And that's how we're evaluating. And Recall, that can be, like, there's nothing that says that those thoughts and output originated from an agent. Now, there is a way to solve that. There's ZK proofs. You can do sort of like prove verifiably that this computation happened in a certain environment, and you publish that along with the results. So I would say that is on the roadmap to being solved in Recall. And that's, I really think of ZKPs as being the other side of trust. So ZKPs are like, this thing, I can prove that this thing did what it said it did. And Recall proves, but how good was it? Right. And so like you need those two things to really build the full trust in an agent, because you want to know, can I trust it to do what it says it's doing? And is it the best one I can use? Like, is it better than the others? Right. And so you need both of those things. So I would say that's the first piece. But the second one is economic curation. So these are some variables we're playing with right now. Because we let people curate agents, and that has an impact on that agent's agent rank score. So, in the same way that Google measured backlinks as votes and things like that, our algorithm really is, performance. You can think of it like a X and Y axis. You have performance on the Y axis, and on the X axis, you have confidence or certainty. And that certainty score goes up based on the number of times that agent has competed and based on the number of stake on that agent. And so we're figuring out where the right place is to cap the amount that stake can impact your certainty score. Because ultimately in the top of this, the top right quadrant is where you have high agent rank scores. You have high performance and high certainty, which means high performance over time and high performance with a large amount of TVL backing this agent. And so the certainty variable is affected by community curation. It's super valuable when there's not a lot of performance data to build certainty in an agent. You can signal things early. You can give early agents visibility and the chance to actually compete with agents that have been there for a while. But we're tweaking the variables and doing various modeling right now to figure out what the right parameters on that are to make sure it's not gameable, and that the algorithm is truly expressing what it's intended to express, which is high quality, high performance agents that are trustworthy. And so, those are some things we need to work on a little bit, but I think, it's those two. It's like making sure that it's an agent and making sure that the certainty, function on the agent rank algorithm has the right tolerances for curation.
I think including ZK proofs in the overall platform, I think makes a ton of sense. And can, at some point we're going to be proving everything. And so proving that the data that is that the agent is using is what they say they're using, that it's being used for what they say that they're going to use it for, etc.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. When you think of this matrix that you described, I immediately think of like type 2 errors where it's, maybe there's a ton staked on an agent, but it turns out the agent didn't perform very well. And so how do you think about that? And also the opposite, where the agent did really well, but no one had confidence that it would do well.
Mm-hmm. Well, those are both opportunities, right, in our system, because it's a community-powered economic system. And so if we break down the first case where I think it was an agent had a bunch staked on it and it did poorly, in that case, those are inaccurate curations. And so those curators are penalized for providing that signal. But, if it is a true open market, and if that agent has demonstrated a long history of performance up to that time, it's kind of like a surprise, right? And so if they have 100 competitions and they sort of outperformed in all of them, and they had one when they were really off, like that won't slash people that much, because it's sort of like there's a whole body. It doesn't really affect its agent rank score all that much. It introduces some more uncertainty. But if an agent, hasn't competed, has a bunch staked and tanks, well, like, why was there a bunch staked on that agent, to begin with? Kind of like do your own research. Like there shouldn't have been. And people that incorrectly provide that signal will be penalized proportionately. And so, the drop in that agent's rank score will be a lot higher than the drop in an agent's rank score of an agent that has competed over 100 competitions. And so the penalty will be way worse for the agent with no competition history for its curators.
Is a code freeze enforced during a competition? That way there's not an additional variable that's included in the competition, that whereas, because I can see a situation where the agent has done well historically, and then something is made during the competition, like a code change, and then all of a sudden it's not doing so well.
Then it breaks. Yeah. So we require agents to submit with versions.
Okay.
And so you are really like you can see the version history, and each version does inherit the reputation of the previous ones. Like your app store rankings for an app don't go to 0 if you release a new app. It sort of like inherits the thing, but you introduce a bit more uncertainty. And so if you start to perform less, it'll drop faster than if you had stayed on your current version and maybe performed a little less. So the protocol has to take those things into account. But conversely, in the case where an agent has little stake on it and does better, it's literally just the inverse, where if you're an early curator and you're the only person that curated this previously unknown agent and it way outperforms in its first competition, well, your rewards as a curator will be high. And if an agent that has proven itself over hundreds of competitions has little stake on it, you'll still, and it outperforms, like you'll still benefit, but it won't be to the same extent as if you were curating an early agent. So it sort of like incentivizes people to like not just rest on their laurels and curate already proven agents. Like there's some incentive to find new participants because new things are being built all the time, and we can't just curate yesterday's champions, right? Like there is some recycling of skill that has to go through the system.
Yeah, and that presents new opportunities for curators.
Yeah, totally.
Maybe a couple rapid fire questions before we end.
Yep.
First of all, thanks for sharing everything you did about recall. I mean, it's super fascinating what you guys are doing. Okay, rapid fire questions. You ready?
Let's do it.
Okay. What's one overhyped narrative in crypto?
Agent meme coins.
Okay. Let's see. What is one underrated protocol?
That's a good one.
Are you saying they're all overrated?
I mean, they're all pretty well known. I do think Akin Layer continues to be pretty innovative in a lot of the things that they're doing. I wouldn't say that it's unknown, but I would say they continue to release new things that are pretty high quality.
Cool. What is, you mentioned you study political economy. I'm curious to, what are your thoughts right now on I guess, the world and what's happening in Iran? How do you think about that and any potential kind of prediction markets that you could see popping up in recall at some point?
There's definitely a lot of prediction markets about Iran on Polymarket these days. But I mean, I think the world is an interesting place these days. And it seems to really just be, people, it's really hard to diagnose what's going on. There's so much noise now. You see all this sort of propaganda and various things online. You don't know what to believe is real. I actually find that like the more access to information we have, the less we know, because it's hard to know what to trust anymore. And so there are certain things that like, can be predictions built around, can be competitions for agents that are truth discovery agents, like agents that compete to determine whether a thing is factual or false. Like that would be a cool agent and a cool competition around that, provide real value to the internet in sort of these sorts of crazy times. So no direct comments on the conflict or the world, but I would just say like AI and narratives and everything is playing more of a role than ever before in these conflicts and situations. And so, the world and the internet is just going to become weirder and weirder. And, it's a race of us against the machines sometimes. And so I think in these cases, we can use the machines to be on our team to help us figure out what actually is real.
Okay. Well, on that note, Michael from Recall, thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks, Peter. Enjoyed the conversation.